What heaven does when you visit someone sick. Heaven moved. Padre Pio watched grace descend with speed that left him breathless. Not slowly, not cautiously, with urgency. A woman had just entered a sick room. She had no medical knowledge, no cure to offer, no power to heal, just presence. And heaven erupted in response. The vision came to Padre Pio during evening prayer. Not gradually, not gently. It struck him with force, pulling him from his devotions before he understood what he was witnessing. The vision opened. Padre Pio saw a dark room, a bed, a figure lying motionless, sick, suffering. The illness had lasted weeks. The person was alone, abandoned by friends who feared contagion, forgotten by family who could not bear to watch the decline. Then the door opened. A woman entered. Not a doctor, not a nurse, just a neighbor who had heard about the illness. She carried food, water, clean linens, simple things. She sat beside the bed. She said nothing profound. She simply stayed. She wiped the sick person's forehead. She adjusted the blankets. She spoke softly about simple things, the weather, the birds. And that is when heaven moved. Padre Pio watched the spiritual realm explode into action. Angels descended instantly. Not one, not two, a multitude. They surrounded the room. They surrounded both people. One angel moved to the sick person, touching, healing, not removing the illness immediately, but easing the suffering. The pain lessened though the person did not know why. The fever broke slightly. Another angel moved to the visitor, strengthening, protecting. She had risked contagion by coming. The angel created a shield she could not see. Grace fortified her. A third angel remained at the doorway, standing guard, preventing anything harmful from entering, creating sanctuary. Heaven had responded to this simple visit as though it were the most important act of mercy in the universe at that moment. Padre Pio felt shock settle over him. He had seen people visit the sick before. He had seen charity. He had seen compassion. But this response was different, more powerful, more immediate, more complete. Why? What made this visit different from all the others he had witnessed? The vision paused. Padre Pio waited. Heaven did not explain. It only continued to show. He saw another scene, a different sick room, a different patient. Another visitor arrived, but this one came with photographers. He made sure others saw. He stayed only minutes. He announced his compassion loudly. He waited for recognition. The spiritual realm remained still. No angels descended. No healing grace flowed. No protection formed. The man received what he sought. Human praise. Human admiration. Human recognition. But heaven gave nothing more. Padre Pio looked closer. Both visitors had come to the sick. Both had entered the room. Both had offered presence. To human eyes, the actions appeared similar. But heaven saw deeper. The first woman's visit had cost her something. She had risked illness. She had given time she could not spare. She had sacrificed safety. And she had come quietly, not for recognition, not for praise. The second man's visit had cost him nothing. His wealth protected him. His status gave him immunity. His power ensured safety. And he had come publicly, for recognition, for praise. Heaven responds to risk taken in mercy, not to safety performed for applause. Weeks later, something shocked Padre Pio. The angels hadn't left the woman. They were still there, still watching, still protecting. And what they did next revealed something most people never learn about visiting the sick. The woman herself fell ill, the same sickness. She had contracted it despite her care. Despite the angel's presence, heaven allowed the illness. She lay alone in her own room, suffering as the other had suffered. But the angels moved. The illness that should have killed her did not. The pain that should have broken her was bearable. Strength came from nowhere. Recovery began when it should not have. Her body healed faster than any doctor could explain. The woman never connected it to the day she visited the sick neighbor. She thought she was fortunate, lucky. She thanked God but did not understand why. But Padre Pio saw the truth. Heaven was still responding to that single act of mercy. The angels had never stopped working. The visit had set protection in motion that continued to flow. The grace she had given was returned multiplied. Nothing moved for a long moment. Then the vision deepened. Padre Pio began to see the pattern heaven was revealing. The visits that summoned heaven's response were not the longest, not the most public, not the most impressive, not the ones people celebrated or remembered. They were the most costly. The souls that brought heaven to immediate action were those whose visits carried a specific quality. It was not about the duration. It was about the risk. It was about coming when safety demanded distance. It was about staying when wisdom counseled flight. These souls did not visit to be seen. They visited because someone suffered alone. and heaven cannot resist that. At first, Padre Pio saw only the outward act. Both people had visited the sick, both had entered the room, both had offered presents. But heaven saw what motivated the visit. Heaven saw the heart behind the action. The first woman's compassion had been pure, no calculation, no guarantee of safety, no expectation of reward. She had come because someone needed presence, because she could do something, because suffering alone is the worst suffering. The second man's compassion had been calculated. He had measured the risk carefully. He had ensured his protection thoroughly. He had expected recognition openly. The visit was real. The presence was actual. But the motive was corrupted. And heaven responds to motive, not to action alone. The vision paused again. Padre Pio felt heaven preparing to reveal something deeper. Not just what happened when people visited the sick, but why heaven responded so powerfully. The silence stretched. His breathing slowed. The room felt heavier. Then the vision resumed, but differently now. Padre Pio saw that heaven does not respond to performances of mercy. Heaven responds to actual risk taken for suffering. Acts done at personal cost reveal the true state of the soul. When someone visits from safety, the risk is managed carefully. The cost is calculated precisely. The motive is mixed. Is it mercy, or is it image? But when someone visits from vulnerability, the risk is real. The cost is genuine. The motive is pure. It can only be mercy. And purity summons heaven's full response. A soul that visits the sick has released concern for personal safety. It has stopped calculating outcomes. It has stopped protecting itself first. It simply acts because acting is right. And that kind of mercy moves all of heaven. Padre Pio understood now what made the difference. Visiting the sick is not about the length of the visit, not about the gifts brought, not about the words spoken. It is about the willingness to risk harm for another's comfort. The soul enters when entering carries danger, sits when sitting invites contagion, stays when staying costs something, touches when touching threatens. That risk proves the heart is pure. That vulnerability reveals the motive is clean. He saw another example. An old man who heard his former enemy was dying. The enemy had wronged him terribly. Years of pain, betrayal, injustice. But the old man went anyway. He sat beside the deathbed. He said nothing about the past. He did not demand apology. He simply stayed. He held the dying man's hand. He prayed quietly. The dying man wept. He asked forgiveness. The old man gave it freely. Padre Pio watched angels fill the room. The moment the old man entered, heaven responded. Angels surrounded both men. Grace descended like rain. The dying man's terror eased. Peace came. The old man stayed until the end. He closed his enemy's eyes. He never told anyone he had gone. He went home. He continued his life. But Padre Pio saw the angels. They remained with the old man for months. Every time he faced difficulty, they acted. Every time he needed strength, they provided it. The single act of visiting his dying enemy had opened heaven's storehouses over his life. The vision shifted once more. Padre Pio now saw something that disturbed him deeply. He saw people who had learned about this principle. They had learned that visiting the sick brings heaven's response. And they began to perform visits. Not from mercy, from calculation. They visited people publicly. But they chose situations where the risk was minimal. They made sure others saw their sacrifice. They wanted credit for their compassion. Heaven remained still. No angels descended. No healing flowed. No special grace came. Padre Pio watched one such person. A woman who had heard that visiting the sick brings divine favor. She wanted that favor desperately, so she looked for opportunities to appear merciful. She found safe situations. She visited with protection. She chose illnesses that were not contagious. She made sure everyone noticed. She talked about it afterward repeatedly. Her visits were technically real. People were helped. Comfort was given. But her heart was not pure. Heaven saw through it. The visits were performance. The mercy was calculated. The risk was managed. True mercy cannot be manufactured. It cannot be performed for reward. The moment someone visits the sick while ensuring safety and seeking recognition, it stops being the kind of mercy heaven honors. The risk must be real. The cost must be possible. The motive must be pure. The vision began to fade. Padre Pio remained still. He would never teach this as a technique. He would never tell people to visit the sick in order to gain heaven's favor. That would corrupt the very thing that made it work. But he would say quietly to those who came to him, when you hear someone is sick and alone, and you can go, go. Even if it risks you, even if it costs you, even if no one will know, even if they cannot repay you, not to gain heaven's favor, but because it is right, because someone suffers alone, because presence heals in ways medicine cannot. Do not calculate the risk first. Do not ensure your safety first. Do not plan your recognition first. Just go, and trust heaven to handle the consequences. And watch what happens. Watch how heaven responds to that kind of mercy. Watch how angels move when someone risks everything for another's comfort. He sat in silence long after the vision ended. The room felt different now, not heavier, not lighter, just charged with possibility, with truth. The truth remained with him, not as technique, but as reality. Angels respond to visiting the sick immediately, not because heaven is impressed by the visit, but because willingness to risk for suffering reveals purity, and purity opens heaven's full resources. The kind of grace that changes everything, the kind that never stops, the kind heaven waits to give.